Welcome back to another episode of The People Behind the Books, the show where we step away from the deductions and deadlines to meet the humans who power the tax and accounting world. Real stories, real conversations, and a reminder that behind every balance sheet is a person with a story. I'm your host, Yehuda. Let's meet today's guest. Hello, Helen. Welcome to The People Behind the Books. I'm so excited to have you on here. It's been a while since you and I have caught up, but just as a little intro, Helen and I, we were acquainted by a mutual friend, and it's very interesting the work that Helen's up to, but I want to, like I do with all my guests, start from the beginning.
Sure. So first, it's so exciting to be here, and thank you for having me. I'm Helen. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Quanta. We're an AI-powered accounting service and accounting platform, but I'll back up to the beginning, as you asked about. And I would guess that I'm probably a unique guest here in that my background is actually software engineering and computer science. So I studied computer science in college at Stanford, and my whole career has been as a software engineer until I then started an accounting company. So I'm excited to share all about that. I actually really think that software engineers and accountants are very kindred spirits, and I can get into that a little bit more. But I was always interested in the intersection of finance and technology, even in my early career as a software engineer, and even in college. I interned in fintech and took a class on Silicon Valley meets Wall Street. And I just because finance is something that actually affects people's lives. And in my career, I built a lot of financial systems as an engineer. So the term we used was financial system of record, but it was actually really double entry ledgers was the way that we built everything. And years of building those systems, including building the in-house accounting system at my last company before Quanta, which was a firm. I worked with the accounting team, the finance team, and learned so much about the space and was just fascinated by it and wanted to build in it. So that's the high level, but I'm excited to go into more detail too.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you constantly see this refrain from accountants where we're, we keep on asking the question of who's building better software out there, because there are only so many choices, and for a lot of different reasons that people have a lot of different opinions about all the different software that's currently available, and some is better, some is worse. Everything has their pros and cons. Instead of you going ahead and taking the traditional approach to accounting and tax, which is using third-party vendors for everything, you went ahead and built everything from scratch. But your user base, Quanta's user base, is specifically startups and customers who actually need this type of work. The question I was wondering is there ever a future where Quanta is going to open up their platform to other accounting professionals where we could actually utilize, and you would be interested in getting accountants to utilize that this new age level of software engineering that you're building into your program?
Great question. And I'm very happy to hear you interested in that because the short answer is yes. It's not ready yet, but it is in our roadmap and core to our vision that we are eventually going to have a software only solution. And ERP is the term, but it really does so much more than that. Right now, we're using it only to provide our service. So like you said, we close the books, we run the finances for venture-backed software companies. But in the future, we do plan to release our software as a standalone software.
Okay. Now, backing up just a little bit, why don't you just tell everyone where are you originally from, and then where are you now, and how did you get there? Like
So I am from
location wise. Yeah.
Got it. Yes, I'm from Northern Virginia, a suburb of Washington, D.C. My whole family are career public servants, government workers. I actually worked a couple summers for the government during high school. And then I came out to the Bay Area for college at Stanford and as a technologist. Never really left after that. Spent all my summers here and have been in the San Francisco Bay Area since college.
Nice. So you really created roots in California, and you're sticking around there. And as I understand, the Quanta team is all in person in San Francisco.
Yes, we are fully in person in San Francisco. I believe that as an early stage company, the best way to work fast is to be in person, and it's been a lot of fun too, being surrounded by such a great team in the office.
That's great. What was your first reaction to as you started getting into this accounting tax space specifically, with your what was your reaction to your interaction with the current software available out there? I'm sure it was quite a shock seeing how so many systems are running not only legacy infrastructure, but just not a single UI or button has been changed since the 80s, basically, and in the bulk of software, to the extent that a regular discussion at accounting conferences is, hey, which hosting platform are you using for your desktop software? Which is, I mean, I only started this close to a decade ago, and I've always been everything on the cloud, everything on a website, and I can't even begin to comprehend the whole concept of like hosting platforms and it's just way beyond so many steps of backwards. So what was that like first approaching that?
It was honestly pretty wild. So as a software engineer, I'm just so used to all of our metrics being in real time all the time. So all of our performance indicators, really the health of the system and your scoreboard for how things are working is always available in real time and in beautiful software that has great apps, it's live, and then seeing what the state of the world for finance and accounting was like was a shock after expecting such useful and real time metrics. And when I was in my last job, this was at a firm, the fintech and lender, where I spent several years and worked on the in-house accounting system there. I mean, seeing that so much had to be scraped together in SQL queries because NetSuite was behind, and why do we have this big? We spend all this money on the software, and what is it doing if we need to be doing all of this work to scrape metrics together outside of that system?
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of a story I heard. I was listening to a podcast and someone told over the story. Apparently, when Steve Jobs joined Apple, or when he was creating Apple, and or maybe he rejoined after he was at Microsoft, and they were basing all their metrics off of the standard accounting standard, which was last month, last quarter, and he basically said, "Why are we forcing ourselves to live this managerial accounting reality when we can create the tools to do everything in real time?" And so they almost rewrote the playbook on what it meant for real time metrics. This is something that we're constantly, as accountants, from the accounting side, we're constantly up against because we have so many other parties to rely on. So it's almost like, how do you find that beautiful balance between the books being closed in a third party service that now we can only bring over at certain times, as opposed to being able to update things in real time. I know in prior companies I worked at, one of the things that, especially when I got more into the gap financials, accrual accounting, which the whole concept of accrual accounting is it's supposed to tell the true story according to the actual flow of business revenue and expenditures. Um, and in my mind, I said, well, if an expense is over the course of a year, shouldn't the software system just be able to automatically divide it across 365 days? And instead of getting this awkward thing where you're posting monthly journal entries once a month and then it may or may not be equal, like just make it almost like elastic. But I found really quickly that the way accounting systems are built, besides for accrual just being something so beyond the ability of most basic software setups, it's just not thought of in that way. It's always looking back and never, how can we build this so it's real time moving forward? I'm sure you came across things like that as well.
Absolutely. And we built Quanta with accrual from the ground up, and all of our schedules are native within the system. So you can see your prepaids, fixed assets, deferred revenue, and it's automatically posting the entries, and it knows that it's reconciled to the schedule because it's all integrated. and which felt natural to me when I was first learning about the space. And I saw all these spreadsheets and how they would get out of sync, and people were creating the same journal entries. I think QuickBooks lets you duplicate it, which is as just such a tiny drop in the bucket, but that's how people were doing it, if not creating them
Yeah.
manually every time. And I just it was so much work, and such a shame to see such smart people spending so much time just creating the same entries month over month, when I saw this is so easy to automate.
Yeah, I think batch entry for transactions was a recent thing for QuickBooks Online, which I again, I can't comprehend why that sounds like 15 years ago to me. Um, sometimes I think to myself when I see new technology come out, like when iMessage came out with like, I think it was like edit or like one of these like basic functions that I'm like, only now that's a thing. Like I lived through the times of that becoming a thing. So I'm always blown away. So tell me a little bit about the history of Quanta itself, the company. When did that start exactly?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO, and I believe you and I met when I was doing user research for Quanta. I think this was early 2023. I looked up the user research notes that I had with you, so I thought that would be fun before this
Nice.
session. And I saw you were talking about how you were complaining about QuickBooks, which I loved, and it was very motivating to me to see that energy. I wrote down, oh, there's emotion coming through, because as founders we love to see that in user research. If someone's emotional about
Yes,
something,
yes.
it must be a pain. And you were talking about how it should just be so easy to know why did spend go up from month over month, what drove our increase in spend last month, but you had to scroll through 400 transactions in QuickBooks to get that answer. And I remember thinking that that's just wild. But then it continued to be the case, talking to so many people. So this was 2022, and the beginning of 2023 was user research, talked with hundreds of folks like yourself in finance and accounting. When I was at a firm, we had really complex problems. We were accruing interest on like millions and millions of loans, and had all these multiple corporate entities, counterparties moving money all the time. So it felt maybe normal to me that we need a whole engineering team to build something to help here. But then I started talking to more simple SaaS companies and saw that actually they just didn't know how much money they were making, and didn't know how much they were owed by customers, or who they owed money to. And I thought that was such a travesty, and wanted to help there. So this was again 2022, and was doing all that research, and felt like this gift was dropped in my lap with ChatGPT launching that year. And I really wanted to build something in this space, but it was LLMs coming onto the scene, as well as shadowing outsource accounting firms and seeing, oh my gosh, I can do this so much better with software.
Yeah,
And then said, that's the way I want to go, just selling direct in house to venture backed software companies, since that's what I know, and that was the pains that I saw, and I can just sell direct to them and be able to make their lives so much easier. And over time, build the software that is not only an ERP general ledger, but is so much more. It does all the work as well. So we replace both the general ledger and an outsourced bookkeeper doing the work. We do the whole thing, and we provide that full service to our customers. And
yeah.
so it's been a few years now, and it's been going great so far.
Yeah, one of the things I always pay attention to is the I'll say the attention that the prioritization that software companies give to what call their core features versus their new expanded terrain, where you'll have a software company, for example, Intuit QuickBooks is going through this right now, and it's very interesting to watch from the outside, to watch the industry where Intuit QuickBooks is trying to go ahead and almost rebrand as your all-in-one platform for everything, and they're trying so hard, and that's great. We love innovation. But why can I not create a rule that makes something a sales receipt? Why not? I can make it a deposit, but not a sales receipt. Why is that? No particular good reason. And it's just like all these funny little things are just missing. I have this with another software I'm using where there's certain like sort and filter functions in basic functionalities of the software that have just not been implemented properly for the entire time. And meanwhile, here we are introducing brand new modules and new functions. And I'm like, can we just go ahead and fix the filter so it works? Now, coming from a background working with other software engineers, I can appreciate and I understand how difficult it is sometimes to switch something up. At the same time, if people are complaining about something and for it to last for so long, it's almost like what are we even doing here? So that's why I'm so interested in the way you're doing things at Quanta, because, like you said, you're really keeping that everything forward mind, where you're thinking, okay, what is the actual purpose of what we're doing here, as opposed to trying to think of like more and more ways that you can sort of create, gain territory. The thing I think about all the time is I was just talking with a friend the other day. He was thinking of going out on the side and doing some side income, contract work. And I said to him, do me a favor, talk to me beforehand, because there are so many people that can set up a business in such a complicated way. And it doesn't have to be that way, but you would have no idea of what to even know. So do you find yourself in Quanta, are founders reaching out to you before they even begin operations, fundraising, etc., so that way you can go ahead and set them up, say, okay, you don't need 17 bank accounts. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you, get one bank account at this bank. Here's how you're going to process your bill pay, etc. Are you doing it that way, so that way you can just start everyone off on the right foot?
We we do that. We serve a wide range of customers. So we do serve companies who just incorporated yesterday. And we also serve companies who are at hundreds of employees, undergoing audit, Series C, D, growing. So we work with everyone from day one founder who's never heard of accounting to controller who is running a tight ship. But the short answer to your question is yes, for that early stage. So we're full service and we operate out of Slack, since that's where our customer base is. And they're asking us questions about everything because they love our team and they see us as just a resource in general. It's surprising how little a lot of people know about finances, which is fine, and we're there to help. But they ask us what tools to use. And the way that Quanta works is we integrate with all of the modern finance tools. And so we do work with our customers to make sure they're setting up things in a good way. So Stripe is a big one. We help them set that up and make sure that the data is coming through in a clear way to be able to do the accounting well.
Helen, can you tell me about what was the story of how you got your first clients in Quanta?
The first customers in Quanta, really when you're starting a company, a lot come from network. And actually, one of our very first ones was just in the same co-working space, and they were just in the pod over and had a lot of good lunch chats with them. And they were using an outsourced bookkeeper that, oh my gosh, was just totally messing up their data and really needed some help. And just seeing that pain and hearing about it at lunch was just a great way to say, hey, yeah, I can make your life a lot better.
Nice. What you're describing sounds like every good accountant, by the way. One of the things I've figured out, one of my superpowers, is that I can somehow drop a line that I'm an accountant within about 4 sentences into a conversation without anybody noticing. It sort of becomes like background very easily, which is fun. But so at, you all at Quanta have a really unique opportunity, because you're not only pitching regular bookkeeping and accounting services, but because you're building the software, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you have the ability to become much more powerful than almost like any accounting firm out there, which is why I'm almost wondering, like what is the aspiration in terms of the direction you're headed? Do you see yourself, does the company see itself staying more in functioning as facilitating, specific clients' needs, or are you going to eventually like open up your software so that way it becomes something other accountants can use?
So the thing I'm most passionate about and Quanta's vision is to be able to elucidate any part of the business, to be the financial system of record and source of truth for businesses. And that means understanding everything, having all the financial data flow through Quanta. I believe that's the best way to truly be able to answer any question about the business, elucidate anything about the business in real time. That's what we're trying to do. So to do that, it was important to me to always be the full general ledger and always own all of the integrations for all the tools that are moving money. And that's no small feat, right? There's a lot to build there. So what made the most sense was to start with the smallest companies. But while always holding constant that we're the full general ledger, we see the full picture of the business. So that was starting with very small companies while doing everything. So starting with some pre-revenue companies first and building our way up. And for small companies, and these are venture backed companies, but for small companies, their problem is not that they want accounting software and want to do it themselves. They just want it done. They want the accounting done. They want their financial statements done. They want to know the why and the so what. They don't care about the journal entries, which means if I built accounting software, they weren't going to buy it. They just want the accounting done, which means you have to be the full service solution. So that is why Quanta took the approach that we did. And so that is our core competency right now. And it also makes sure that we have software that is not just a general ledger, but it's actually doing the work. It's pulling in all of the transactions from all the other financial tools. It's understanding them. That's a lot of where the LLMs come in as well. The LLMs are not doing math. That would be very scary. But I think one thing people don't realize is so much of accounting is really natural language. It's understanding memos, bills, receipts, contracts, pulling the service period off of invoices to know if we need to capitalize it or not. So we built this intelligence engine that actually replaces so much of what bookkeepers are doing today. And our goal and vision is to make sure that only the creative strategic work is done by accountants. None of
Mhm.
the menial work, no posting that same prepaid amortization journal entry month over month, uh, no setting up inane rules, but just configuring the high level policies and knowing the business well enough to do that and be strategic. And so we're automating everything else. So yes, over time, that does mean we're going to sell a software only solution, but because we started out as a services business, our software can really do all of the work that otherwise humans in services would be doing.
Mhm. It's interesting because so right now in the industry, you see a lot of AI, you know, coming into, coming into software. And while us accountants, we're very used to rules, which are great because they're ironclad. They're very specific and they go from point A to point B, and they'll always accomplish that. As opposed to where you have these AI models where they're predicting the next word, and while sometimes it can be helpful, it almost like feels like right now where we are, we're in that funny precipice where we're almost backtracking. Like the rules were more helpful. And I think this is the tough part in our industry, especially, is we need early adopters to be those early adopters in order to fine tune that engine that's being built. But until we get there, we're in a very almost like awkward state. So tell me a little bit more about the specific things Quanta's doing. Meaning like all these reporting functions, a CEO wants to know what's our, and then they like insert some acronym that nobody really knows what it is. And what's our ARR? What's our, profit margins? Like all these things that people talk about. And I think probably the biggest problem you probably run into is you're talking to founders where they'll say profit margin and they actually mean gross margin, or they'll say I want this type of ratio and they mean something completely different. Like in their mind the words aren't necessarily either as meaningful or they're not using the actual accounting definition. So how do you go about that, and what do you have built in that's helping show and communicate to founders, business owners, helpful information?
Founders do not care about a lot of accounting metrics. I'll say that, and they don't know them. They want ARR, they want the SaaS metrics. And by the way, just a reminder, we do work with heads of finance, CFOs, controllers as well, but the founders are definitely egregious, and they don't know what COGS is. Like, they don't know what cost of revenue is.
Right.
We have to help them with that. I think the biggest one that they don't understand right now that I think is so important today is margins, because I think a lot of founders still assume what's been the case for the past 10 years, which is that if you're building software, you must have amazing margins. You must automatically have 90, 95% margins because that's the way that SaaS has been for many years. But that's actually changing in the AI era. Companies are spending so much on their AI provider, and that cost goes up as their customers use them more. So that's your COGS. And I'm working with people who've never heard the term COGS before, and we have to help them and say, hey, your previous bookkeeper was tracking this as OPEX, but it's not. You need to be paying attention to this. You think you're making money, but actually your costs are higher than what you're collecting from your customers. So that's
Right.
one metric and one area that we help with a lot. And is another reason why in the AI era that people need real-time finance. Closing your books weeks after the month ends is too late to be tracking these things, because startups are moving so fast, and
Right.
your provider costs are changing and so volatile from day to day, week to week. And so that's why our real time approach really helps our customer base.
Yeah, it's funny. That's something I came across also where, especially though you're always waiting for those statements to be generated, us accountants are sort of in love with our PDFs. And while I understand where it comes from because we believe in a certain level of data fidelity and permanence, so it's not going to change. It's not it's a set thing I can download, I can see, and it's not going to be edited after the fact. It's funny though because we simultaneously work in a world where we're dealing with when I file people's taxes. I actually had this. I had to amend a tax return because they got a corrected brokerage statement from their investment provider, right? When did they get it? At the end of April. So we had to file an amended return, and there was nothing to do. So now we know. I put it on his file. I said, "Okay, we'll put you on extension, and we'll just wait because they're probably going to correct it, and then I don't want to have to charge you for another amended return." And it's almost funny because when I was working with my previous company, I always sort of assumed data was pure and was readable and was accessible, and I'm finding out more and more that data is just a big mess, and it doesn't make any sense to me because why would you build it like that? It's supposed the whole point of data is that it's supposed to have a firm footing and something that you can actually rely on, yet somehow things just end up all over the place. So how do you, when you're relying on third party sources, how do you go ahead and deal with that? Because sometimes you will have to go back because things change, and sometimes you don't have end of day balances available because that financial institution doesn't want to send over the transactions. A great example is Bank of America will not send like bank feed transactions over while the transaction is processing. It has to be fully, and sometimes it can take up to 2 days. It has to be fully, processed and not pending anymore before it will actually go through to the bank feed. So how do you deal with something like that?
Great question. And by the way, what you were saying around the data being a mess resonates so much, especially with my engineering background. I expect all the numbers to be pure and objective, right? There's some pure source of truth that's inarguable, and then going into the accounting space and seeing how subjective so many things are with different treatment you can apply to things. But luckily, in the business space, we don't really see a lot of statements amended months after the fact. However, we are stuck waiting on some brokerage accounts sometimes, and that tends to be the limiting factor for our close.
Yeah.
But we one thing we're really great at is the things that do come in real time are the more operational transactions. So those are coming in real time, and our customers can see those. But then we do a final close with a human review as well. And that's one thing that our hybrid software services model is great at, is just having a human look at everything at the end. And really, it's just the statements sometimes come in 4 or 5 days, but that's really the longest that we've seen. And it's funny, that tends to be our long pole and our bottleneck, is waiting for those treasury statements to come in at day 4, day 5. But it is very it's very projectable out month over month, the main operating account. So where bills are being paid, payroll is being run, those we have fantastic integrations for, and they're coming in real time. But sometimes those treasury brokerage accounts do take a little bit more time. But I do think that the way the future is moving, and one reason I was excited to start this company in the AI era is we're not waiting on statements um, for a lot of areas that we used to, where accountants and bookkeepers usually had to log in, click something, download, because there was no QuickBooks integration or API. LLMs are fantastic at crawling through browsers and clicking around and seeing things. And so we can actually automate these areas that before a human just had to go and click around. We're actually in an era where we can automate that work so we can log in and see the state of things.
Yeah, that's great because it's nice to be past the point where we're sort of stuck always waiting, and it's nice to see that that started. Are you all building your own AI agents, or are you integrating with something third party? How are you doing that?
We have not built our own models in-house yet. It's something that we plan for the future, but for now, relying on the ones that have done the heavy lifting is great for us. So we're working with the main foundational model providers to
Nice.
use theirs, and yes, we're doing agentic work. Actually, to come back to one of your previous questions that I realized I didn't fully answer around the
Yeah.
managerial reporting and the SaaS metrics, that's actually how we're addressing a lot of that is one thing we just launched with our Series A announcement in December was an AI reporting product, because every company has their SaaS metrics a little bit different. There's no gap standard for ARR. It's funny, some people, investors, think that it is standard, but no. People have a lot of leeway with it, within the world of usage based and credits and pilots and projects, and everyone wants to have their own definition. And this is actually why I think none of these out of the box tools have caught on for SaaS metrics, is because everyone wants it a little bit different. And the way that we help out there is we do have out of the box reporting that's integrated in Quanta, but we also have AI assisted reporting where you can essentially just prompt and say, I want to start with a Quanta ARR template, and then I want to tweak it in these ways that make sense for my business. And we will just generate that. Quanta will automatically generate that. And it actually is reliable. It's not a hallucination because we are your accounting system as well. And we have
Nice.
all of the data. We have it traced all the way back to the source. We can link back to your bank transactions, to your revenue system, to your payroll, and you can even trace all of that and click through. So you see the report and it's spreadsheet like, so it actually shows its work, but it's automatically generated. And so we've really solved that managerial reporting problem by being integrated into the accounting, which is my belief in why a lot of this work is so hard on the managerial reporting side, is because the underlying data has always been incredibly slow, because close is so slow and messy, because the model of journal entries that aren't linked to anything or are done just once a month just loses so much context
Yeah.
from the underlying data. So because we're able to link everything back to the source and retain all of that context, we call it the operational ledger, which is that we have the general ledger, but we also have the operational ledger, which is essentially sub ledgers that have all of your operational data. And since we see the full picture, we can solve that managerial reporting problem with AI, because every business is a little bit different.
Right. One of the things I remember was always a toss up is how many subledgers should we create in order to tell that story that we're trying to sort of figure out on a month to month basis. And it just becomes like there's just no end. You can always create another subledger, and then you realize you have four subledgers that are actually the same thing, just called something else. And it becomes so repetitious and redundant. Um I wonder. First of all, I hope after today, a lot of people request to see Quanta, because this is also exciting. And I feel like, again, my goal here is that lots of accountants and tax preparers are listening to this and will want to learn more about a new provider that's actually giving, I'll say, back, the power of the purpose of what we're trying to do, as opposed to, integrating MailChimp, which is like, that's great, awesome, that's fantastic. That's not what I charge for when I'm doing bookkeeping on a month to month basis. So that's really cool. And I like the idea of that you're saying of how like you have these, this AI built into the software. Is it that like the founders could then chat with an AI and say, hey, where's this? And then it will show you, oh, look right over here at this report. Is it like that?
That's exactly right. So it's a natural language interface. So you can ask, hey, why did my burn go up last month? Or should I be worried about any customers that are particularly delinquent? Or show me the
See,
churn by this segment or P&L by customer. And it's not just a chat response. Every single number has a formula that is visible and traceable back to your indisputable source data.
I could have really used this like 2 years ago. It would have been so helpful. I would have been the best finance manager.
Well, I think your
If only.
passion in our user research that we did a couple of years ago helped inform this. So
Okay,
thank you for
good.
that.
It was coming from somewhere. Now you see the frustration month over month where there were so many questions to answer and they were always different questions. And it was like playing a game of whack-a-mole because I'm very into automation and I never like doing the same thing more than once. So I'll create a checklist, I'll create some sort of automation, I'll create something that way I won't have to think through it again. And every month I was solving problems. And then every single month, without fail, there were always more questions. Well, why is this like that? Why is that like this? And because I'm dealing with, at the time I was dealing with QuickBooks Online's limitations and an outsourced bookkeeper that does things according to their schedule. And I'm juggling all of this and simultaneously trying to give back proper data and information that's meaningful. And every bit that I provided, there would always be something else sort of missing. So that's really cool. I'm really excited for you and for Quanta, and certainly we'll be watching out for your continued success and the company's continued success. Um, I'm curious to hear your take in general, aspirationally for you, and then also for the industry in general. Where do you see us going? I know when ChatGPT came out like 3 years ago, we're just at the 3 year anniversary. Everybody assumed that AI was going to take off so quickly, and here we are 3 years later, and I'm rolling my eyes a little bit because it's taking way longer than, okay, yes, GPT-5 is amazing, except for the fact that I still a little bit feel like we haven't gotten that much past a year or two ago. Now, yes, now there are these new innovations, but the new innovations still have yet to prove useful and accurate enough that we can actually implement them into our workflow. So where do you see the industry going in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, which is like a full millennium in technology wise?
There is a lot of hype right now around AI and accounting. And it is very exciting to see just how much excitement there is in the space. And I think some accountant and finance minds are finally opening up to new tools, which is it's great to be a part of that. That rising tide really lifts all the boats. And even though I am hearing this new desire to try new tools, there certainly hasn't been any immediate breakthroughs. A lot of people they certainly say that they're using ChatGPT to help with things, but there's no one big tool, AI tool, that's changed the world yet. I think that there's a lot of mistaken application of AI to accounting. I've seen people think that they can just say, "Hey, AI, do all of the bookkeeping, just categorize everything," and they think it's as simple as the AI can do math and categorize transactions,
Oh, it
and that's
cannot do math.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. It's really bad at math most of the time. Yes.
Absolutely, and we would certainly not let it do the math, but even just doing the blanket categorizations, I think a lot of um, these are maybe YC founders or people that just want to ride the hype and don't realize how nuanced things are, and don't realize that setting up processes and setting up tools in a good way is part of it. The garbage in, garbage out
Yeah.
statement still really applies, and one area I've seen a lot of hype is AI FP&A or AI reporting, like we talked about. But I firmly believe that none of these tools will work if the underlying data is messy. There's that garbage in,
Mm.
garbage out problem.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's a reason that so many second time founders start FP&A companies. It's because it was a really big pain for them. They wanted to know all those questions you just said. Hey, why did this change? Why is revenue going up? How are our segments doing? How much is it costing us to take on these new customers? And the reason the answers are hard is not because there isn't a flashy FP&A tool, but it's because the underlying data is messy. And that is why we're taking the approach we are at Quanta, where we are doing all of the accounting. We're generating the clean and structured data. And we've been doing that for the past years. And we did the hard part first. And that's why we just launched our AI reporting just recently. And because we had to lay that foundation and build a system and team that generated that clean structured data. And now we get to generate that AI reporting on top. And because it needs to be linked back to all of that data to really answer those questions. So that's where I think the industry is going, is this more intertwined or intersection of the accounting side and the finance side. I think the past era was they were operated on separate timelines because accounting was moving so slow. But
Yeah.
now that we can move faster, they're really coming together, and we're seeing accounting being more future facing, not just here's what happened, here are the historicals, but it can start to answer, well, why and so what? And what's going to happen next? And that's where the future of the industry is going. And I'm excited to be at the forefront of that.
Cool. What motivates you moving forward to show up every day, continue doing what you're doing?
What motivates me is we are really building towards a future where people don't have to make decisions in the dark, where they have the answers that they need to figure out what matters most. Accounting is the language of business. It's the scoreboard for your business, and the fact that it is operating a week's lag and sometimes even months lag for these smaller companies is, I think we're going to look back on that and say that that was absolutely crazy. So it's so motivating to me to be building towards a future where everyone can just have clear answers and actually know what's going on in their business in real time all the time.
Nice. Okay, you've gotten up to the segment which I call my rapid fire questions. Part of this is to try to get to know people a little bit better. So I'm gonna have a few hard hitting questions that we'll see which way you go. First of all, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee. Okay. One or two, or depends on the day.
Depends on the day, but I'd say 2.5 on average. And black, never
Okay.
milk, never sugar.
Okay, impressive. Okay, it shows that you are a strong individual, obviously, much stronger than I am, because for me, it's lots of sugar and lots of milk. Okay, next question is dark mode or light mode?
Light mode.
Light mode, Mac or Windows?
Mac.
Mac light mode. That's
I'm a
very
software engineer. Mac is the way to go. Although a lot of our team uses PCs for sure.
okay. I was gonna say, but that's not as typical. Okay. When you're not working Quanta, what are you doing on a weekend? What are you doing for fun? What is your relaxation look like?
I love being in nature. I go on road bike rides in the Bay Area on the weekend, north of San Francisco, and in the winter, it's skiing in Tahoe on the weekends.
Nice. Okay, that's exciting. A little more exciting than things I do, but you know, listen, we can't win them all. This is something that there's I think applied to a lot of people, and people are very passionate about. Oxford comma or no Oxford comma?
I'm very strong. You need the Oxford comma. Too much
Thank
ambiguity
you.
if you don't.
See, I told you. I told you people are very passionate about these
Yes.
things. And you get to know a little bit more about a person when you see whether or not they use an Oxford comma or not. Well, Helen, this has been so much fun hanging out. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast, tell people about what Quanta is doing. Where can people learn more about Quanta and find you online?
You should go to usequanta.com. So use USE quanta.com, or find us on LinkedIn, use Quanta, or my LinkedIn account, Helen Hastings, which I believe will be linked in the materials of the podcast. But definitely
Yes.
come check us out. DM me anytime if anyone has any questions about Quanta.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Helen. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was such a fun time to be here. Thank you so much.